Welcome back to the Alec Lewis Show. I'm your host, Alec Lewis. This is episode 81, recording on Cinco de Mayo. Appreciate you guys being here, especially as the Wolves are in round number 2. They play the Warriors this week. I'm trying to, find my way over to the arena, watch Steph Curry and Draymond against the group that seems to be peaking and has been very fun to watch, led by Anthony Edwards. Like I said, appreciate you guys being here. Got Pete Bercich for you today. If you've listened to the show for 81 episodes, 80 at this point, you've heard Pete on a lot, but just trust his analysis. Know he watches the film and puts in the time, and that matters a lot to me. He's poured in a lot on these draft prospects. I know we've talked about them recently with Fran Duffy and others, but Pete's perspective of how these guys will fit in the system and kind of how they align, I thought would be really, really good. And we talked for a while. So I hope you guys are ready. You got a long walk, you got a workout, you got a long car ride. Any of those will suit you very well for the conversation with Pete Bercich. If you're new here and watching on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button right below. Hit the thumbs up. It helps us out. And we've grown this thing in less than a year, almost at 3,000 subscribers, a lot of people viewing and watching. So it's been a blast, and I am hopeful that it continues to be over these next few very interesting months, summer into the fall training camp, JJ McCarthy time. So looking forward to it. The show is presented by First Resource Bank. That is a member FDIC bank in the local area, run by Tim Siegley, Aaron Siegley, Charlie Anderson, and a bunch of really great people who work over in the office on Washington near US Bank. They go to all the Vikings games. They're locked in. They've got questions all the time. And, if you need a bank with a great online platform with branches all over the area that cares about the local community and likes to talk about the teams you like to listen to and talk about, it's the best fit you could probably find. So please go check them out. Information on First Resource Bank is in the description below. It's a great time, both in the Twin Cities. You guys can see the weather outside the window. The Wolves are, like I've said, doing what they're doing. Got stories at The Athletic. Did a pretty in-depth story on Donovan Jackson for Monday. Talked to a bunch of coaches who spend time around him and really enjoyed doing that. And then we'll have more later this week. Rookie minicamp is Friday. So we'll be out there and get to see and meet all these new guys. Really looking forward to it. More stuff on those guys to come in the writing format, and we'll talk about them over here on the podcast. So stay locked in. Here's the conversation with Pete Bercich. Again, hope you guys have a long walk, workout, long drive. You're going to need it. Conversation with Pete Bercich. Let's get right into it. All right, Pete, welcome back to the show. It's the summer. I believe you were up here doing some studio work, but what else you got going?
Is it, is it summer already? Is it summer already?
It's May. Is May not the summer? Are you a hockey guy? You're not. Are you an NBA playoffs guy? What are you doing in your spare time?
I do enjoy watching the NBA, especially the playoffs, but hard to find on TV, right? I don't have the full suite of all the cable and everything else. So, I'm not following a ton of sports in the off season. Let's just put it that way. I keep up with the results, but I'm not watching them live.
So what are you doing?
What do I do?
Shows guy? Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, a lot of YouTube. What are some of them? I'm trying to think of some of the ones I'm into now. Gangland, is that what it's called? It's you're out of my Mobland.
Gotcha.
So
gotcha. Perfect segue. Well, when you're not watching Mobland, you're watching film of the 5 draftees. Before we started recording, You're telling me you've watched hundreds of clips of all 5 of these guys. We haven't talked since free agency, and we talked after that free agency period about Jonathan Allen, a bunch of those guys. But I guess we'll just start with the draft. Going into the draft, what were your expectations coming out of it? Having watched as many clips of film as you have, what are your takeaways post draft?
You did. I think they did the best they could with what they had. As we got closer and closer to the draft, you saw, there weren't a lot of trades going on. Not a lot of quarterbacks in this draft as opposed to a year ago. So a lot of teams, and I guess that's part of the thing when you're a GM is you have to value, how much am I willing to take and trade for? So there wasn't as much movement, let's just say.
Sure.
So, because I figured like a lot of people, jump out of the first round or trade and pick up some equity down the road. Didn't work out is what it is, but the players that they drafted, they all have, I think, a starter potential, which, you don't really say that all the time, right? It's not reality. Sometimes you look at guys and you go, it's a long shot. He's a couple years out. But I think all the guys that they picked, I'm amazed at how many good football players are just available, especially at the linebacker position later on in drafts these days in tight end positions. I mean, obviously the elite ones go super high, the pass receivers, but there's still a lot of really good football players that are in the 4th and 5th and 6th rounds. And so I think every single one of these guys has a lot to bring to the table, and they all have chances of playing this fall.
We can talk about each of the picks, but I mean, you just started with linebacker. I know your expertise. I mean, is Kobe King, after watching all 5 of the guys, besides Donovan Jackson, the first rounder, is there one of them that you just like watching the film, you just enjoyed, or you just like were like, I can't wait to get more of it? Just because for me, sometimes I'm watching film of these guys and there's just one of them just pops. And I'm not just talking this specific draftee, but like a player you're watching just is fun to watch more of. Was there one for you? Was that Kobe King?
Yeah, no question. I mean, watching the film of Kobe King was enjoyable. I mean, I just went from this game to this game to this game, and it's always interesting and kind of fun to turn on the tape and having done this as a coach and as on the because you do pro scouting as a coach, and you also, because you have to evaluate free agents, and you do college as well. But when you're evaluating guys on film, you shouldn't have to look for them for too long, right? You shouldn't have to scroll through 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 plays to be like, what's this guy's number again? And you're looking around, you're like, is he out there? And which guy is he? And someone like Kobe King just jumps off the film at you right away. And it didn't matter really what game it was. You try to choose a good opponent early in the season, middle of the season, and then late in the season to see, do they progress? Did they regress? Right. All those kinds of things. But this kid was just fun to watch. I mean, he's Ivan Pace 2.0, except he's drafted and Ivan Pace wasn't. Ivan Pace was more of a D lineman, right? He was on the line of scrimmage a lot more, rushed the quarterback a lot more. Kobe King's more of an off the ball linebacker. Their builds are very, very similar. King is 6 foot. I have him at 6 foot, almost like 6 foot and 1/2 inch. So he's just over 6 feet tall, but he's 243 pounds.
Yeah.
And he carries that weight low. He's very physical. He tackles very, very well. I haven't seen a guy who at college, especially anymore, that when he tackles a guy, they don't fall forward for 2, 3, 4, 5 yards, right? They stop. So he's a very, very physical tackler. And then the everything else that he does with the physicality of his position, getting off blocks, reading guards, not a lot of false movement. I know a lot of people, they remember the college playoffs and some of the situations that he was put in man-to-man coverage where he's out in space, covering guys. There's a number of plays that I put on as highlight to show that out of the backfield, he's chasing guys down. He's doing his job. I think when you put him out, you put any linebacker out in space, covering a receiver. Number one, it's bad news because the quarterback can look out and go, okay, they're in man. And number two, they know where to go with the football.
Mismatch.
I mean, covering a good running back in space for any linebacker is tough, and you just don't see it. You don't see it in the NFL. They have they're more sophisticated. They can get themselves out of that position. Did you see Ivan Pace walk all the way out past the numbers to cover a guy one-on-one at any time during the season? No. Does he still have to cover running backs one-on-one? Yeah. And the one that pops out to me is the Thursday night game in LA against the Rams, where they had a running back check through the line and then he kind of overplayed it and boom, it was a touchdown. So yes, they have to cover. But I wouldn't put coverage as one of his weaknesses. Outside of that, just how hard he plays, how much he hits, just fast downhill. Love watching this kid play, and he hits the snot out of people. The SMU game, they do a quarterback sweep, and he's way to the opposite side. You can barely see him on the film, and the quarterback takes a sweep, and you can just see him run. Right. And then gets to the quarterback, and just making or being in on the tackle is impressive, but he lights that guy up. Like the quarterback, you see him kind of go in the pile this way, and then the quarterback comes out the other side going, so that watching that it's just fun.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's just a lot of fun to watch this kid play.
They didn't think he would be there at that spot. Like I'll be very frank with you. Just having talked to a lot of people internally, and you probably have as well, to get him at 202.
That's what I'm saying. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's just like getting Ivan Pace as an undrafted rookie free agent. I mean, having an undrafted rookie free agent be on the field for base offense or base defense, period, is a big deal.
Sure.
To have the same guys go out and be able to make plays, that's unbelievable. Right? Because you look in hindsight, where you look back at Ivan Pace and you say, if you took him in a third round, would you have been okay with that? You're like,
of course.
Well, yeah, he starts some plays, right? Third round, yeah, second round, third round, right? We'll be saying, I think, the same thing about Kobe King, assuming he stays healthy. Work ethic and how hard these guys play is such a big point because it speaks to their development, right? I look at Ingram's Dawkins, and I'm thinking, or was it Ingram Dawkins?
Yeah, Ingram Dawkins, yeah.
Yeah, and for him, that's going, because there are certain times where he's just all over the place, playing hard. Other times, you'd like to see, I think, a little bit more effort out of him. It's there. If he comes into this camp and works hard, he'll be a starter. He'll play a ton. You know what I mean? He's going to be every bit as good as Bullard was. Playing kind of that same position. So effort means a lot. That's why you have to watch these guys run the football. You have to watch play after play after play after play. But Kobe King can rush the passer. He has that kind of horizontal wiggle that Ivan Pace has. It's kind of funny watching them because they're very, very similar. However, I think King is a little more versed in coverage. He's a little bit more between a Cashman and a Ivan Pace. So that's
probably the perfect way to describe like what he brings. But you kind of touch a little bit on one of the questions I have had watching him. It feels like a thumper, traditional. That guy's going to find his way into the backfield, make tackles, not going to miss tackles. And it does sound like, talking to people around him, that he has like the mental bandwidth to potentially be a green dot type player. And this system as well as anybody in terms of, the depth that it has and the amount of calls these guys have to make on the field. So finding the guy who can orchestrate that is not easy, but the coverage was my question. But and you might have an opinion on this, like maybe next to a guy like Blake Cashman, who is as rangy as Blake is, maybe you don't need the really, just rangy cover guy at that spot. Maybe it's that, more.
That being said, yes, there was Ivan Pace coming out of Cincinnati where he was on the line most of the time. He wasn't off the ball as much. He didn't have to read guards as much, nor did he have to drop into hook zones and all those other things as much. I thought that would, because that's a thing that could keep him off the field. But this system fits a guy like him very well. So you'd look at Kobe King, who from a film standpoint is better in coverage already coming into this than I don't have, is he as good as, so you say if he's going to come in and let's say take snaps off Cashman,
I don't think so.
Cashman's skill sets. Well, I'm just saying Cashman's skill set's a little bit different. Cashman can step up and run defensive line games and his skill set is just that it's just a little bit different. He's also very good in coverage. He has great awareness in coverage and those kinds of things. So you can do different things with Cashman. I think King could get there in a lot of ways. It's going to take him a little bit of time. It's hard to do. You need a lot of awareness and snaps and everything to really get that coverage side of it down. So yeah, he's a little bit in between, but one thing I remember from last season is not having Cashman affected this defense, right? And
we talked about it often. You and I did.
The depth that you need. And can Kobe King step in as a rookie? No, you're not going to be able to replace. He's not going to just come in and replace Cashman. However, I think he gets you closer to having a true backup in that spot. Then, let's face it, it was kind of an open door. We saw a number of guys come in and do different things on this defense. I mean, that's a Flores special, right?
Yeah, it was Common Grugier Hill. You had Dallas Turner,
who had two interceptions, by the way. He was like third on the team at 2 interceptions. Yeah, he just pulls guys off the street, plugs them in, and has success with it. That's what he did at Miami, and he's doing it here. So, I have no doubt Kobe King will be a big part of this defense this year, and he's the one guy I'm most excited about because I was a linebacker coach. The way he plays the position, his physicality, work ethic. I mean, he just lights people up. Same way Ivan Pace did. I was extremely excited about Ivan Pace, and I remember doing the film on Ivan.
I remember you did it. I remember you were all in.
But I wasn't all in saying this guy's going to be a starter. I said this guy's going to play. I had no idea Pace would contribute as much as he did. So I look at Pace with this scheme. I'm thinking Kobe King is Ivan Pace 2.0. We're going to see this kid. We're going to see this kid quite a bit.
You mentioned this. You were talking about like work ethic, character, a little bit with just prospects in general. And I just respect your like history doing it, but I mean, I'm sure you evaluated guys. I mean, for the draft, you listened to scouts talk about guys, and then you over the years brought players in, and I just wonder if there's like person that comes to mind for you of like, I remember just like this guy, we bet on the character and it showed up, it played out. That's why this guy thrived. Like if there's somebody who fit those qualities, those traits that stands out to you.
Oh man, that we brought in. I'm trying to think of my position.
Or it could be just team wide.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, that's a tough one. I'd have to sit down and kind of look through a list because all these names in my head.
Put you on the spot.
I don't know, man. A lot of guys. When I think of guys that work hard, I think of guys like obviously John Randall, but people like Antoine Winfield, who just wasn't tall enough, right? He just didn't fit the mold, but he made up for it in a lot of other ways. Very, very professional. Robert Griffin, who just ran and hit people, and they like, okay, we got to find a spot for you, and they did, right? And he continued to grow, and that's again, I go back to the work ethic part. If I see a guy on film who's running his ass off, working hard, I have confidence that this kid will end up being coachable just because he's going to work I don't see many guys that blow it up on film and run around on film and they have this elite effort and then not give it in practice. And I know as a coach, if this kid's going to work hard in practice, I can make him better. Right. So I look at the top. When I see work ethic, I think of improvement and the ability to improve, and the likelihood of them improving. So that's why I said what I said about Ingram Dawkins is this kid has an incredible amount of physical skill, right? Long, strong, and you see it at times. I mean, his ability to especially take on blocks and stuff. I mean, he's basically tossing around offensive linemen. It's unbelievable. Do you see it every play? No. So his technique at Georgia is a little different. So getting here, if he comes in and says, I'm going to play, I want to start, and has that attitude, no one's going to stop him. That's the cool thing about this draft. I think all those guys are that way. You can go with Donovan Jackson. This, his skill set.
I was going to ask.
He possesses a few. Well, okay. To talk about Donovan Jackson, he has a few things that guys like Ed Ingram didn't. Right. So Ed Ingram,
that's perfect.
Not a bust. He's a player with a fatal flaw, and his fatal flaw is that when he loses in pass coverage, he loses quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, he just could never get over guessing or there were just too many plays where it
would seem like
quickly.
He got out over his feet, like he'd be bending, and it was just
either he was guessing, guessing one thing and getting another, whatever it was. He just couldn't get over that. Like he tried to hit people, right? So being over aggressive, what I don't know. I'd have to talk to his position coach, right, to say what do you think was the one thing. But the bottom line was he was getting beat quickly. And that can't happen twice a game, because that means you're giving up either 2 sacks or 2 plays, 3 plays every game are dead because this guy, he just couldn't get over that. Now I look at a Donovan Jackson who is much bigger and has better feet. One thing he does have is he has a punch. When he gets his hands on people, he is unbelievably strong. That's why he only had 2 penalties in his last 28 games. Once he gets those claws on you, you're done, right? If he gets his hands inside, you're done. And on top of that, he has good enough feet where if he gets his hands on somebody and they say, all right, well, I'm just going to go take you down the middle, he can reset his feet. We see Darisaw do that all the time, right? You stay light because you think you're going to get a speed move. The guy all of a sudden switches and goes to power. You've got to be able to recover from that. And Darisaw's feet, he's so good and it's so low to the ground, he can do that. And I've seen Jackson do that. And at Ohio State, they're playing Oregon, and I can't remember the kid's name.
Derek Harmon, probably.
Yeah, Derek Harmon, right? So you're watching snaps of him against Derek Harmon. And
I did the same thing.
He's doing a great job holding up. Harmon's trying to 2-gap him. Nope, he's not going anywhere. I got him right here. He's done. So, he's very good off. I think where he's best is when you get to hit on a double team and then work him up to the second level. Like he can make a double team move, right? And that's
imagine him and Darisaw making the double team move.
Exactly. He and Darisaw is going to be, him and Nelson now. Kelly.
Kelly.
I'm sorry, Ryan Kelly, excuse me.
Yep.
I'm keeping Nelson. But that was kind of Bradbury's, his kind of fatal flaw. When you put him next to somebody that can move a pile, then he could use his athleticism to work his way and reach a guy, right? But he just didn't have that elite punch, and you don't have to have it to play. But he needed 2 guards next to him that could really move a pile, and he just didn't always have that. And so that made all 3 of them kind of that whole interior of the offensive line is kind of a chain reaction from there. But he's I guess his ability to recover, he's smart, meaning, and you can see it on film how he can anticipate pass rush stunts. 3.85 GPA, cares about school, sees himself as a smart player. That's good. That needs to continue. And if that does, then he's going to be a good one. But he's so strong with up top, especially with his hands. Now, he'll duck his head every once in a while, which is something he's got to get himself out of, right? He wants to put his head down and really, butt someone if he's on a run block or he sees a pass rush coming right down the middle. You got to get him out of. So he has some habits that he's going to have to break. But again, the size and athleticism and all that is there. And it's just a matter of him he's got it. So my point is if this doesn't work out for him, it's not our fault. It's not the coach. It's his fault, right? It's on him now.
No, the two things with him that you mentioned that I really loved, in bringing up Ed Ingram. I mean, to me, I always think about it. It's like a pitcher who throws 5 innings that are solid, but you hang 2 or 3 curveballs for 2-run shots, you're going to lose the game. And so, like, even if you're mildly effective as a run blocker or whatever for an extended period of time, but then you get beat quickly 3 times for sacks that ruin 3 drives, that's not sustainable. But with you bringing Ed Ingram up, to me, like the recoverability, there are multiple games of Donovan Jackson film where he might lose the block, but like you see the strain to be able to still prevent that guy from getting anywhere near the quarterback. Like that's still on film. Losing doesn't, it's not lost, even if the guy gets an edge on him or is starting to creep by him. So there's that. And the other aspect that you mentioned of his that I loved, and I saw it in the Oregon game, is the awareness in terms of stunts, of moving one guy, seeing the looper, and not allowing that guy to beat him on an edge. Like those two aspects and how they pair with how Kevin O'Connell wants to run offense and how defenses have tried to attack Kevin O'Connell's offense over time. Like those two, just me as a viewer of it, just excite me, that possibility of plugging in someone at that spot who has those skills.
I know watching the Oregon game, Michigan State, I'm trying to remember all the games on him I watched, but
I think there's a Nebraska game that I liked.
Well, what Ohio State did a lot of is turn the center the opposite way when they were in basic or normal pass pro, like you would see in the NFL. Meaning, you have the offensive line sits in front, and then he's the left guard, and then the center turns to his right. And so what that does is that opens up a space, and that guard is immediately one-on-one in space, right? The Will Fries video I did, especially against the Bears, they did that a ton. They were turning the center the opposite way, and there he is. You're showing kind of play after play after play of him holding up in pass coverage. That's the impressive part with Donovan, that it's the hardest thing for a guard in the NFL to do, especially when you have defensive tackles like you do at this level.
Yeah.
When that center's going the opposite way, you're on an island, bro, and you can't lose quickly. Sometimes you got to hold on for dear life. Now, fortunately, J.J. McCarthy's a little bit more of an athletic quarterback, and he's going to probably, I would anticipate him moving more. But you don't want to move it unless he has to, right? Or he wants to, excuse me. And so,
right, not just moving to move.
Not a move. Right, not scrambling and making great plays because he's got somebody in his lap right away. So, but yeah, Donovan, and again, so the recoverability, even if there's a swing and a miss, if he can just get his hand on somebody, he can make a difference. So all those things, I think, together, make me believe he has a great chance of cracking that lineup and being a starter by the end of the season for sure. Blake Brandel started the season and was playing well early on. As the season progressed, I didn't really watch or study him in particular to see what was going on. But you would assume with the free agent moves that he's the guy that's being challenged.
No question. That's accurate.
And that's another way that you think, well, this wasn't a need pick, right? You didn't have to pick a guard because you probably could have gotten through the season with Brandel like you did a year ago. So the fact that they picked him, that's nice. It's nice to know you're not just grabbing guys because you need to. Can he play? Can Donovan Jackson play tackle? We saw it on film. It's a different animal, different technique. I thought he had it's amazing you watch him play against Abdul Carter in Penn State.
Yeah.
He the speed got him a couple times, but he held in the run game. I haven't you watched the film review we just did on him. He took him a couple times and just said, no, no thanks. Carter wanted to two gap him. He's like, yeah, no, boom, put him on the ground.
It's his first game playing tackle at that level too. Right. He's doing that
exactly, and did a couple. Had a couple underneath moves or spin moves that he handled well. So, yeah, like you just said, it's first game at tackle, not bad, right?
And the other thing for me with this
whole fact that he did it too, right?
Yeah. The other thing for me with the whole conversation, it's not sexy podcast conversation probably, but like the depth of that entire room is at a level that it just has not been anywhere close since I got here and started covering the team in 2022. I mean, even, you signed Justin School as a potential swing tackle. That guy played last year in Tampa. He played pretty well. You drafted Walter Rouse, Michael Juergens. Again, if Blake Brandel is either starting to start the season or backing up to start the season, it's also just comforting knowing, yes, the starting five and the interior is totally revamped. It's overhauled. Yeah. That makes you feel really good. But then even the depth, knowing that the way these things go with injuries, it typically goes how it goes, like to have depth that you feel comfortable if those guys are thrust in, like it's a really good place to be, in my opinion.
We saw last year what happened in Detroit, and then you saw what happened in the playoff game against the Rams in Arizona, where
it was miserable.
Physically, this team just got beat up, right? They just were out physicaled, because physical is not a word, but it's a phrase that coaches love because it sounds good.
Liked it. Yeah.
And so you see that and you're like, okay, we win 14 games. You're one and done you're one and done. You're out of the playoffs after the first game. You saw what happened. The team that finished the season wasn't the team that finished was what it was in the regular season. So you got to fix it. Coach O'Connell is doing that. And you step back and you go, okay, so you see that Darnold was sacked 48 or 49 times. He definitely fell off toward the end of the year. 49 sacks now, how many hits he took, right? Too much.
Way more than we probably gave it credit for, or I'll speak, I say we, I in the moment. I think in some ways Kirk's ability to take as many hits as he did and continue to keep getting up the way he did kind of made you numb to the extent at which that can really affect you over the course of a season.
Well, yeah. And the thing is too, so they identified the problem, right? We love, we watch, I could tell you what I saw, but they obviously did the work, but they went about fixing it. They spent the money. They brought in the pieces that they needed. They pursued it in the draft. So the depth of this offensive line compared to a year ago, it's a statement, right? It's a statement that the coaching staff made saying, we're not going to let that happen again. And this is all the money we spent and the draft equity we spent to make sure that doesn't happen again. And then especially when your draft pick is going to be now the young quarterback, and he's going to need all the help he can get. And the best friend of a young quarterback is a great defense and a very good running game. So you're working with all that too, trying to create an environment so your draft pick can succeed. And it's refreshing just to be able to see this, right? You're like, okay, A, therefore B, and then we go to C, and now we do D. And instead of coming out of the draft and looking at the roster going, what are we doing there? Doing here. Right? Yeah. It's like, well, let's, are we just going to hope that this thing figures itself out? So, a lot of hope. There's a lot of hope for me. A lot of question marks. The NFC North is going to be, I think, pretty wide open this year.
And it could be, I was thinking about this, having some conversation the last couple of days. Like, you might get tested from the get-go. I mean, it might be one of those three teams in this division from the very beginning. J.J. McCarthy's first game, this new look offensive line's first game,
yeah.
and the test could be from the top. I want to get to you.
There will be no easing into this season.
No, right, correct.
Nope.
Exactly right. You watched Ty Felton and Gavin Bartholomew, but I want to get to those guys and some brief thoughts. But one real quick one that's tangentially related to Donovan Jackson. So they ended up drafting Donovan Jackson. A player on the board at the time was Will Johnson, the Michigan corner. And rather than asking you specifically about Will Johnson, I just do wonder, we talked offensive line for a while there. The cornerback room, where is your head at with Byron Murphy Jr., Isaiah Rodgers, Jeff Okudah, Mekhi Blackman, Dwight McGlothern, and that room and where it's at right now?
I feel like we have more depth there and possibilities there than we do at corner. Or I'm sorry, it's safety. Excuse me.
Sure,
then it's safety.
Sure.
Because Metellus is listed as a safety, but he's not a safety. He doesn't play safety.
Right. He's a box player, slot defender.
But he's not right. He's exactly. He's more of he's really like a linebacker, sometimes a nickel. Right. It doesn't mean he won't drop on a deep half every now and again, but he's not going to be a down, in and out.
That's not his primary role.
No. And I think, I don't know. I don't. Do I feel better than I did a year ago? I don't know. I mean, Mekhi Blackman's going to need to get better. How is he going to look after his knee? He's got to figure out how to play against taller receivers. And you're kind of counting on some younger guys stepping up and playing well. But we've done that in free agency a couple times. We did, the last couple of years. So I think if there was a huge issue with that group that they saw, then maybe we would have gone a different direction and picked a corner. But they'll find. We've brought in some old guys, some long on the tooth players late, right? You have all the preseason. There's a lot of things that can happen. So I think they'll find the guys that they need. And what would be nice is if you really had some serious talent, then maybe playing a little more man to man would be something that we could do. Which against a mobile quarterback, you're probably not going to do much of it anyway, but just slipping it in there every now and again. I think against teams like Detroit, right, that's something.
The Packers, they did last year, 50% man, and Matt LaFleur was not expecting that in that late season game. And just kind of trickling it in on a third down here and there, right? And just make the quarterback hold the ball for a fraction of a second longer. In when I'm as I'm going through all the sacks that we had last year, there are a couple of those that are like that, where it is man coverage and the quarterback's like, I don't know really what to do here. By the time that they can scramble or figure something out, it's really too late. So, hopefully that'll happen. We'll see. And I imagine too, the secondary and the feelings internally about the secondary, it's also enhanced by thinking that you'll have an improved pass rush in the form of Jonathan Allen, Javon Hargrave, Jonathan Grenard, Andrew Van Ginkel, Dallas Turner, Ivan Pace, Blake Cashman, and the pressure that those guys can provide, can apply to the opposing quarterback means less time to throw, means less time to have to cover. So I know that that's an aspect to it. Ty Felton, Gavin Bartholomew, just your thoughts on those two players.
What I like about Ty Felton, 96 receptions last year. So he's kind of the guy. And that's always a good thing. I think that's my guy. I'm trying to remember his name, the wide receiver we drafted in the first round years ago. That never panned out.
Laquan
not
Trevian?
before Laquan. He had some drops that I'd never seen before. I mean,
we're about to find out, Pete.
Oh my God, I can't remember his name. This is embarrassing.
Stick with me here.
Yeah, he came from Maryland. I think he was at Maryland. He had a drop versus Denver that was one of the most unbelievable, just as wide open as anybody I'd ever seen in my life.
You're not talking E.J. Henderson, are you? I'm kidding.
No. Wide receiver.
You said Maryland.
Oh my God. Yeah, I think
Troy
he went to
Williamson?
Maryland. Yes, Troy Williamson. Thank you.
No problem.
So, but
People
I
are
think
gonna
that's
get mad at me for that one.
hopefully we'll do some editing
I
after
knew
that one.
AJ. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Well,
No question.
I think the lesson learned with Troy Williamson was Williamson in college had some unbelievable plays, dynamic, speed, the whole thing. But he didn't get the ball thrown to him over 100 times in his college. He was kind of the number 2 receiver. You know what I'm saying? He was not the featured guy. And so making that transition to being
South
that
Carolina.
guy in the NFL, right? South Carolina, that's it, right? That I think that's a lesson learned. That was a lesson learned there with him. And so that's what I like about Ty Felton is he was the guy, right?
Production.
He was, yeah. They had and the quarterback, the quarterback situation at Pitt, and we'll get to that Bartholomew in a minute, which wasn't very good. It was tough at Maryland, but 9 touchdowns last year, 8 of which were in the red zone. You got to be a great route runner to get open in the red zone, right? So that I think is good. Straight line speed. I think what's gonna matter to him the most is just catching everything that comes his way, right? I think that has to be his thing, and his ability to attack and go over the middle of the field. He played everywhere on the offense at Maryland. He played X, he played Z, he played slot.
Like that too. The Vikings like that too. They put him
every. Yes, so the versatility is there because he's not going to be a 1 or 2 because he already got those guys. So, yeah, I think those are, and if he wants to beat out Speedy, the only hole in Speedy's game right now is, a couple drops, right? That one against the Rams was there, brutal. And yeah, so
there was another late pass. There was a deep ball to Jalen Naylor. Can't remember the game, and for some reason it slipped my mind this past season where it was deep ball and it went through his hands. But that Rams one stung in the moment, and it's still
that was a tough one. So and again, we're talking about a number 3 receiver, meaning when that ball gets, and it's why we like Brandon Powell, right? He kind of everything. Third down, things kind of break apart. There's Brandon Powell. You throw him the ball, he gets that extra yard or 2 running. Those are the plays that you have to make, and those are the plays that Ty Felton is going to have to make this year, right? Can they use him vertically? He's got that speed. Yeah, he's a playmaker. I think he does a good job of seeing what defenses are in front of him and working to the voids and doing those things, settling across the middle of the field. So saw him do some of that, and I think that's all going to be key. As that, there's it's kind of crowded in there right now, right? Naylor's in there right now. Rondale Moore, though, is kind of a running back, kind of a wide receiver. So where he's going to fit
his injury, I mean that may continue into, through the summer into the fall. So that's another aspect conversation. But you're right. It's a competitive room, but it's good. I mean, it's good. If Jalen Naylor,
you want.
Right, exactly. And that's what
what you want.
Just like with the O-line room, it's like there's competition now. At edge rusher, there's competition. On the interior defensive line, there's competition. It's like in real competition. Mm-hmm. This is not just media fodder. It's like guys who can push the players who have been on the team to the brink. And that's beneficial for a team that has the expectations this one will have.
Right. And I think another thing with Ty Felton that I saw is, he's 6'1", about $185. So he's not really big. And at the college level, if he was contacted down the field, 5-10 yards down the field, sometimes he would get pushed off of his routes and those kinds of things. Whereas at this level, it's going to be better for him because you can't touch a receiver more than 5 yards down the field. In college, you can run into or hit a receiver until the quarterback throws the football. Whereas in the NFL, it's the 5 yard rule. So I think that is going to help Felton out at this level, because I know that was a thing, kind of a hole in his game, so to speak, and get knocked off of routes, that sort of thing. It's like, I don't know if he's going to experience that as much in this level. So, but yeah, for him, it's just going to be be able to work the middle of the field and then be able to catch everything that's thrown your way and use your speed after you catch the football, right? And it's the Jalen Nailor role is kind of the role that's the role that you want. You just want someone that can do that can improve upon it, right? And,
Sure.
and Nailor might do that. Another year. I mean, this is the NFL, right? You every year as good as you were a year ago, you got to come in and get better. And there's always going to be that pressure that someone's going to take your job.
It's the same as a podcaster. It's the same deal,
right?
And as a writer,
yeah, and right. And for Nailor, he's got to continue to get better. It's not like, oh, you're terrible, we don't want you. No, it's not the case. It's you know now. That's why as a player, you hated the draft, unless you were making a ton of money. You knew they couldn't cut you because you're thinking, oh my God, if they bring in like a Dwayne Rutter in the first round, or it's like, okay, well, he's making the team.
Right.
Right.
It's like
so
your margin for error is getting that much more slim with every player.
They would ask, hey, you going to watch the draft? It's like, why would I want to see him pick my replacement? No.
That's exactly.
The less I know, the better going into this thing.
That's phenomenal.
So,
Gavin Bartholomew.
Yeah.
You got quick hits on Gavin Bartholomew. I know you do.
Yeah. I mean, he's more of a Pitt had a big problem at quarterback, right? So he's not used to the quarterback play he's going to see at this level. A 4-year starter, more of an H-back than a true tight end. Okay. So he's tall. He's 6'4", 6'4.5", 245. So he's going to have to put some weight on. A good blocker in that he works hard at it, right? He gives everything he can to block, because a lot of tight ends are going on, I get paid to catch footballs, I don't get paid to block. Well, your best friend is a tight end is being able to block, because then the play fake actually means something, right? Because if they never run the ball your way, because you can't exactly, right? If you have a receiving tight end and a blocking tight end, they're going to say, okay, we're going to put the safety on the receiving tight end side, and that's why Gronkowski was so good, because he could legitimately block. So any run fake his way had to be honored, and that helped him a ton, especially in the red zone. That's where all that pays off. But working out of the backfield, he wind up at wide receiver, so he's very versatile at running routes. He'd run wide receiver routes as an X, split out and run and goes and comebacks and all those things. So he can do all that. I have confidence that he's going to get better as a blocker, because he goes out there and tries, right?
The Vikings have a pretty good.
Is he going to have a hard time moving? Yeah. Is he going to have a hard time moving an outside linebacker at 245? Yes, he's going to. So I don't expect him to be lighting people up, right? He's not Josh Oliver. Let's just put it that way. But versatility, right? And being able to fit in, I think, this system where he's not going to always just have to line up in the line of scrimmage. You can put him in the backfield. He's familiar with all that. So I love his skill set. Good hands, a good red zone. I think the other thing that stood out with him, with how Pitt used him, is you watched the bowl game. They were I don't remember the name of the game, but it was in Detroit. Imagine a bowl game in Detroit. And they were playing, oh my God, who were they playing? Not Temple. It was, it's one of those days. But it was overtime, and they put him in the red zone at quarterback, and they ran a wildcat play with him. And then the next play, they put him, he's at quarterback. They rolled him out and to throw a pass, and the guy was wide open, and he just overthrew him, right? The very next play, they put him at tight end, and he ran a beautiful 7 route. Safety was outside of him. He gave a great nod. The safety jumped, and he went to the corner, and he caught a 2-point conversion to win the game. To me, that's important, because probably one of the most embarrassing plays of his career was that terrible pass when he was at quarterback. And then one play later, he goes ahead and wins the game. That part of it you love to see, right? He just didn't collapse. He had a rough play, turns around one play later, boom, and wins the football game. So, I like that part of him, the perseverance. He was offered money hit the transfer portal as a senior, it probably would have been, looking at the quarterback play that he had to deal with.
Yeah,
probably would have been probably much better for his career. But he stayed with Pitt, right? Pitt stuck with him when he tore his knee up as a junior in high school, wanted to go to West Virginia, and West Virginia just dropped him because he was injured. So he learned, I think, as a good lesson as a junior in high school to say, yeah, people love you when you're healthy. People love you if this, and this. But Pitt stayed with him and said, no, we want you despite the injury. And he stayed there for 4 seasons, turned down money to leave. And so I think that tells you a little bit about a peek into his integrity. Now you want to confirm all that. That's why you have interviews and talk to other people. But for me, in the way I go about learning about these guys, a lot of those are good signs. So I expect him to be a hard worker. And again, all 5 of these guys can be starters on this team if they work. And that, I think, is a good draft, because you don't have guys that you're looking at saying, well, he's going to have to get his feet better, and he's going to have to get in the weight room, and he's going to have to do this, and he's going to have to do that. I think all of these guys have proven that they're going to be good football players, and it's just a matter of whether or not they want to.
Yeah. The breakdowns on all that was phenomenal. We talked before we started recording, and I appreciate the time. We've gone, 45 plus, but I mean, I said to you before we started, like, I'm very, very excited for this summer, whether it's summer or not yet, whether, I'm excited for the fall. I mean, it's seeing how Jaden McCarthy looks. It's evaluating kind of what the run schemes kind of look like in another season. It's watching Jordan Mason. It's seeing how the offensive line gels. It's watching Javon Hargrave, Jonathan Allen. It's seeing Isaiah Rodgers at cornerback. It's seeing Dallas Turner in what is going to be a massive year 2 for him. But I'm excited. I imagine you are too.
Yeah, I am. I mean, then you look at a guy like a Jeff Okudah, who we got to see probably play his best game of his career.
22.
Right? The day he about shut down JJ.
I remember that game.
If he can just figure that out, he could be, this is his last chance, right? This is his last chance. It's just kind of like Darnold. This was Darnold's last chance to prove that he could start and be a quarterback, a winning quarterback at this level. And that's a great time to have that guy. And
it's a good point.
Look what happened, right? Because it's either now or never. Because if it was a disastrous season for Darnold last year, he would have been a backup at best the rest of his career. So I look at Okudah the same way. Yeah, his story has been checkered by a lot of different things, but he had success here. And if he could just figure everything out in a system where you don't have to play lockdown man-to-man all the time, he might step up and have a great year, right? Or all you need is him, Isaiah Rodgers, maybe, and just a couple guys here or there. I think I'm looking forward to seeing this defensive front. Looking to see what Flores is going to do with a Hargrave and a Jonathan Allen, right? No offense to the guys that we had, but these guys are a different level, no question about it. And the young, it's all going to be about the quarterback. Bottom line is that, right?
That's well said.
So you put all these pieces in place, and it's all going to come down to JJ and how well he plays. And there's going to be bumps in the road, and he's going to look great, and he's not going to look great, and that's life. We saw that with Darnold last year, right? Jacksonville game, Tennessee, the offense sputtered. So you're gonna see it this year, and we need to be playing. We don't need to be playing great football in September and October. You need to be playing great football in November and December, because these young, that's what you need. That's kind of how I'm hoping the season goes. So early on, I'm not going to be panicking if things aren't going great.
It's a great. I'm glad you brought it up, because it could be, the waters early on could be rocky, but to your point.
Oh, no question.
The hope is that as things pass, as you get back from overseas potentially, in your boat that you're getting back for, across the waters, that things kind of stabilize kind of down the stretch. So
you look at 2 years ago, in that Las Vegas Raiders game where we put up 3 points and still found a way to win that game. So that's where scoring defense is so important. And again, like I said, Jacksonville last year, Tennessee was, I think, kind of a game, but you just had a few weeks there where the offense just wasn't clicking. That's where a good running game is going to help you, number one. But number two, the defense just has to have a couple of games a year where they just take a brunt of the burden and say, okay, we're going to win it on our backs. And you have those guys that can do it. And, 14 win season this year, I would be shocked if this team wins 14 games. I really would be. I mean, I would have. The
schedule as well. The schedule is, Ravens, Bengals, Commanders, Eagles. I mean, the schedule is not a tall task. It is a tall task. It is not a small task.
Yeah, but again, assuming that all those teams are as good as they were a year ago, which you just want to. Part of that's luck. You want to play the right team at the right time when they're missing a quarterback or they're missing some key people. So those things all factor into it, But we've kind of got the regular season thing figured out from judging from the last 3 seasons. But we got to get that postseason thing figured out too. But you got to get there first. So
that's correct. Well, thanks for hopping on. Yeah, you mentioned the defense. I always imagine Flores this time of year is just in his office, just absolutely, putting stuff on the whiteboard. That's extremely interesting, entertaining, and I wish I could see it, but I never will be able to. Thanks for.
We had a good conversation with Flores last year in the preseason where he's kind of like, you don't really know what you have until a couple weeks into the season. You really don't. You don't play enough in the preseason. You don't have enough preseason games. Well, and so what that defense is going to look like, we may not even know until 5, 6, 7 weeks into the season. And that's what you love about an experienced guy like Flores is he has the breadth and width of a defensive mind to be able to accommodate the players that he has, right? To put them in positions to succeed. And I think we have the same thing offensively. So, it's not how many times have you seen it? A brilliant coordinator from one team becomes a head coach somewhere else, tries to run the same offense or defense without the guys, and it's a disaster. So, again, it's just patience. That's gonna be the motto, I guess. I don't know.
That's the headline. Pete, thanks for hopping on as always. It's great to catch up.
Yeah.
We'll talk.
Thank you.
Down the line, we'll get some real football here in the next couple months and be right back at it. Appreciate you hopping on. Always fun.
Yeah. Anytime, man. Take care.
And that'll do it for episode 81 of the Alec Lewis Show. Always am grateful for Pete spending the time and doing what he loves to do, which is talk ball and some of these players. He cares about it a lot and really spends the time. Again, film watching isn't the most riveting of activities. You're clicking through film clip after film clip and you can lose attention pretty easily, but I know he's done it for a long time. So always appreciate his perspective. If you made it all this way, please hit that like button, subscribe on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, iHeart, wherever you're listening. We really appreciate that. And then check out First Resource Bank in the description below. We'll have a podcast later this week. Like I said, Rookie Minicamp Friday. We'll have some updates from that over the weekend over at The Athletic. And, things are humming. So thank you guys for being here. Thanks for listening. Enjoy the Wolves games this week. Good luck to you guys if you're supporting. If you're going, that environment should be absolutely electric, and I can't wait for it. But in the meantime, thank you guys for listening to another episode of The Alec Lewis Show.